Hi, it's Paul here from InterAcct Software. Today we're going to have a look at the job expense allocation in our system. It's a function for the job costing module that allows you to attach costs to a job that have been incurred before to your company. So things like consumables or freight costs or some sort of general type costs are generally what it gets used for. So it's not when, for instance, you have a purchase order that you assign directly to a job or an invoice or a payment that you directly assign to a job. This is for normally little bits and pieces. Sometimes people use it for example, a percentage of the job. They say, for instance, the job is $10,000. We're going to always put 1% in for consumables, nuts and bolts and whatever it might be. Other people just have a fixed amount. And then, the other thing you could do is say, well, we're going to be sending different deliveries out, freight amounts, rather than trying to break your freight invoice down per job. You could just say, okay, we had 3 deliveries, they're roughly $40 each, so that's what we're going to put onto the job. So let's go through the 2 ways you can get to this option. One is from the probably from the accounting menu or the job costing menu, and that will then show you all expense recoveries for all jobs. And the other way is to go via the actual jobs themselves and select a particular job and then put in and see the expense recoveries just for that one job. I've just got a test system here, so I've only actually got one job in my system at the moment, and I haven't actually got any expense recoveries just yet. So I'm going to select under transactions over here and then use this option here, number 10, job expense recovery. You can do a search to see for existing ones, but I'm just going to push enter and then add a new one. And then all it's going to ask for is the date. It's going to ask for the job number. Now I've just called it. I'm searching just by the name, which I've called test. There it is there. And then it's going to ask for an item code. So this is just what it's going to sit under the job costing. So you can set up these under the setup of the cost groups and items. You can see that it's defaulted to sundry, but you can actually choose like hire or something else if you're wanting to put it to something else. Let's just say for today, we're just going to put it to sundry materials, just nuts and bolts and that sort of thing. And we're going to put in a $40 charge. $40 cost. It's going to suggest that there's a markup on that of 20%. You can change that if you want. If you're wanting to suggest that if we were to sell it by itself, what would we sell it for? So I could have $50 there. And then the comments here, you could put in something here, but normally you wouldn't need to. But it's there if you're wanting to put it in. So then that's really it. So that's added to the cost. So if we have a look at the job now, to job details, number 2, you can see under the financial summary here, we've got that extra cost that's come through with an expected sell of $50. So if I have a look, for example, at the transactions and processes and have a look at the option under the, I think it's under job reports here. Yeah, so underneath this one here, which is the job ledger, there it is, number 14. And then you can see the details of the transactions here. So you can see my little narration for nuts and bolts. You can see that I've got a cost of 40 and an expected sell of 50. So there wasn't any invoice there. There's no general ledger transaction to this. It's just there to record against your job, so you can then take that cost up on the job at a later stage to show that, for example, this cost us $40 more than if it wasn't here. So the other option, as I mentioned before, is you can use under the job transactions. So this is under the processes. There is the option here as well to do the expense recovery. So you can see here number 15 is the expense recovery. You can see the existing one in there, and obviously you can just add a new one, put it in for a new date. So as I mentioned, you can put it against other things than sundry, but generally it will be a sundry type cost. And you can set up default values for all these things underneath the cost groups and items. All right, so that's really the main thing I wanted to show you today. It's just one of those little extra things that some people sort of forget about, but it's quite useful for taking up extra costs that you should be attached to a particular job. All right, have a good one. Bye.